Hey, YouTube. This is your girl, Megan. Welcome back to the HoodAstroQ to all of my returning subscribers. However, if this is your first time joining me on today, be sure to click that thumbs up button if you like and subscribe to join the family. It's free 99, all right? And share this video with a friend. However, if you need a little bit more on your palette, okay, feel free to join my Patreon where you can have access to exclusive videos and other content for as little as $5 a month. I'll be sure to include the link in the description box. So, with that being said, today, as you can see, I gotta play some catch up here because I just completely left the whole Exposed series to the wayside, and my deepest apologies. You guys have been hitting me up talking about like, okay, so what's the tea, girl? Where are these Exposed videos? So I thought I should kick off Cancer season by giving you guys Cancer Exposed. You ready? Want to hear it? Here you go. So Cancer is a feminine negative sign as well as a cardinal sign. And specifically, it is the third cardinal season of the year, following, of course, Capricorn season and Aries. Cancer season begins around June 20th or the 21st. Some even say the 22nd. And it extends through July the 22nd. And essentially what it does is it kicks off summer. Okay, it's not necessarily the pinnacle of summer, because I would actually describe that to be Leo season. But nonetheless, it's getting us there. And when you think about everything that's occurring throughout Cancer season, right? This is classic cookout season, right? Everybody's going to cookouts, picnics, barbecues, right? The 4th of July, which if you're black like me, it's canceled. But even then, Juneteenth, occurs right before Cancer season begins, which is actually no coincidence because Cancer is the sign of patriotism and nationalism. So it definitely hints to those feelings that can make a person feel very strongly tied and connected to either their country, right, their nationality, their race. Symbolized by the crab, Cancer as an archetype is governed by the moon, and it is known for its power, conviction, and prowess of emotion, all right, and the ability to tune into, tap into, and channel emotions, different streams of emotions, which comes from an extreme intuitive and psychic ability. Cancer is one of the most psychic signs of the zodiac, and I don't think they always get the credit that they deserve for that. You know, when people think about psychics, they naturally associate it with like Pisces or maybe even Scorpio. And to a very strong degree, all of the water signs do share a very psychic and spiritual type of intuitive component. But Cancer in and of itself is definitely, I would say, would be one of the most psychic signs of the zodiac. However, if afflicted, it can be prone to psychic attacks. And from a humanistic standpoint, right, a personality standpoint, this can manifest in people with many Cancer or very prominent Cancer placements being prone towards hysterical behavior, right? And if you're studying even like traditional astrology, a lot of astrologers do link that Cancer energy, that lunar energy, to hysteria. And it's also no coincidence that, you know, in the process, there is, when you're thinking about like social construction and dynamics, because the moon represents women, there is this intrinsic tie between women and hysteria, and the connection between women and us being so steeped in our emotions. And the worst quality, the worst manifestation of that is just a woman who is batshit crazy and can't control herself, right? You know, only really women are the people who are described as hysterical. However, in its ideal state, Cancer is the culmination of the divine feminine. And it is because of this can be a rather difficult sign for men to navigate. So when it comes to men who have very prominent Cancer placements, or maybe they have one of the big three, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, and Cancer, Cancer, Mars men as well, they can have a very difficult time really reconciling who they are as men, especially Cancer sons, with that female and feminine energy, because of course, the societal structures that are in place that typically make it difficult for men who have a surplus of feminine energy to kind of find their way and express themselves. These people and Cancer individuals in general typically have a very strong attachment to women, once again, due to its rulership being the moon, right? And that strong tie to women and femininity, the mother, that female energy. And it's for better or for worse, because once again, a very kind of ideal, unafflicted state, these are people who can have very strong and bountiful and very rich and fulfilling relationships and ties to the women in their lives. However, realistically speaking, these are people who can also, in the other extreme, definitely be subject and prone to some of the most toxic and dysfunctional, not only, feminine relationships, but family relationships, as Cancer also does deal with the family. These people, their family tends to play a very strong role in their lives for better or for worse. The same thing with their connections with women, for better or for worse. And as it pertains to the men operating under this Cancer energy, I tend to find that, of course, you can say that most men or most people need their mothers or need a strong connection with women. But for a Cancer man to not be able to establish a connection with the mother, be it maybe his mother died, right, prematurely, perhaps he just has a very strained relationship with the mother. These are men who really suffer. They suffer, it's a very particular type of suffering. They have a very difficult time relating to themselves, relating to the other women in their lives. These are men who can be completely dysfunctional if void of that level of attachment, which Cancer also does deal with roots and attachment and connection to the women in their lives. And you could even say that for, I guess anybody with very prominent Cancer energy, but men, I notice, especially, and some really good examples of this are 50 Cent. Okay, in which anybody who knows him, of course, he's the rapper, who's now like an entrepreneur. However, he is very open about the fact that at a very young age, his mother was actually murdered. And now, from what we know of him as a celebrity, he is I would describe him as unstable. Some people would definitely admire him for his entrepreneurship and his business prowess and whatnot, and even his contributions to rap. But the dysfunction and the dysfunctional type of relationship that he has with women and family is definitely put on display regularly, as he is the type of guy, when he feels slighted, he will quote unquote clap back. This is the same guy who is openly and publicly beefing with his own child. He's one of those guys who will stoop to a woman's level and kind of argue back and forth with a woman and disrespect women very openly. And, that is definitely one of the signs of like a guy who has a very wounded sense of feminine energy. Okay. Same thing goes with Kevin Hart, which, his mother actually died from cancer, and he has issues, very open and public issues with monogamy. Okay. Cancers can also, if unevolved, Cancer men can be womanizers, big time womanizers. So, there's that. Cancer is also a sign that is preceded by their reputation for being extremely sensitive. It's definitely one of those buzzwords when used to describe it in astrology. And once again, its sensitivity is definitely based upon their psychic and intuitive instincts. These are people who can easily absorb the emotions and vibrations of other people, very similar to Pisces, okay? These people have senses that are finely tuned, which gives them the ability to pick up on the vibrations of others and even mimic them or reflect them back. Cancer is also, once again, in its lower vibrational state, right, if afflicted, can be hypersensitive. So these are people, from a humanistic standpoint, where these are people who can take things personally, okay? People who are often way too moved and influenced by their emotions. Cancer definitely has this sense of like emotional current that is ever changing, which can create a level of unpredictability, which translates into moodiness for a lot of people who embody this Cancer energy, okay? However, Cancer is very dedicated to steadfast commitments, especially as it pertains to family or who they deem to be family, okay? Because Cancer is also the sign of unconditional love. So, alternatively, once a Cancer takes to you, they hold on and don't let go, or at least not very easily. These are your essential ride or die type of people, okay? They can be extremely loyal to a fault. Another really good celebrity example of this archetype is Tiny, okay? Tiny Tamika Harris from the group Escape, who is also known for her relationship and her marriage with T.I. Tip Luther King Encyclopedia Harris, okay? Everybody knows that they've had a very long-standing relationship in which they've been very public about their problems, and a huge problem in their relationship has always been infidelity. These two have broken up, gotten back together, on a public stage. So, however, despite many of T.I.'s flaws, from the narcissism to the infidelity to the lack of respect, Tiny has definitely had a very unwavering sense of loyalty to him. And that's the reason why she's still there. I believe she even caught a drug charge for him, So this is very quintessential Cancer women. Cancer women take lots of abuse, be it emotional abuse, be it, downright physical abuse, psychological abuse from their men and from the people that they care about. And a large part of Cancer's refusal to release ties so easily is partially due to craving familiarity and comfort, but sometimes it even stems from the fear of being lonely, which definitely triggers some of those qualities associated with Cancer's opposing sign of Capricorn. So if Capricorn is the sign that deals with solitude, right? Cancer, being its polar opposite, is the sign that kind of is apprehensive towards that. Okay, these are people who deep down inside do fear either being alone or fear failing and not having a soft place to land or a soft place to fall, right? People with very prominent Cancer placements can also need constant reassurance. And of course, there is difficulty from moving on from old people, places, and things. And even if they do get past this fear and trepidation, they'll oftentimes seek to recreate the past in the present, for better or for worse. So you can look at this as someone who or a girl who breaks up with her ex-boyfriend, and then her next boyfriend looks just like him, or her next boyfriend maybe, fits the same type or wears his hair the same way, buys the same clothes. Maybe he's a an athlete, if the ex-boyfriend was an athlete, perhaps it could even be down to like a literal level of, the new boyfriend, his middle name is the same as the ex-boyfriend's first name or something. But there's always some level of like overlap in commonality and in similarity. Perhaps, this girl always dates Sagittarius men. So her ex was a Sag, and then when she gets into her next relationship, you can bet your bottom dollar that he's going to be a Sagittarius as well. And a lot of Cancers, most Cancers, especially people who have no idea about astrology, don't even know that they're doing this. This is definitely like a subconscious type of habit. Another example of this could be a guy who has a very tumultuous relationship with his mother and then goes out or seeks out to recreate that relationship by selecting a woman who embodies and mirrors a lot of those qualities that his mother has. Okay, so if his mother was the type to reject him and emasculate him, you'll more often than not find him with a partner, a wife who does the same. So like I said, to a certain degree, this can be true for a lot of people, just from a sheer psychological perspective. However, with Cancers, this Cancer energy, it's almost like clockwork. You can pretty much count on it. These people are definitely hardwired for familiarity. This could also result in the tendency for Cancer to harbor on to the past. And from a relationship context, these are people who bring up old shit all the time, right? People who nag you about things that have already happened. And a really good example of this, okay, I myself am a Cancer South Node. Those who are regular to this channel know that I always kind of give my Cancer South Node tales. However, I, as a rule of thumb, have a very strict stance on taking back partners once they've cheated, because I've tried to do so in the past, and forgive the person, and then you feel like you can move forward. However, with that Cancer South Node, I am someone who myself has a lot of past life energy and a lot of karma tied into an inability to let shit go. So be very clear, in past and previous situations where I even consciously were like, okay, you know what? I forgive you. Let's just move on. Let's just move forward. No harm, no foul. Later down the line, I found myself being that type of person to bring up old things and then throw them in that person's face. It's very difficult for me to forgive and forget and move on, as is Cancer. So especially when you're dealing with somebody who perhaps we're talking like a Cancer Venus individual, these can be, depending on, their partner, this can be very difficult for some people to deal with, Also, Cancer, with it also being the sign of closeness. Once again, these people on a very low vibrational level, or if afflicted, this can manifest in a person who is very clingy. Okay, which obviously can also pose a problem for the people around them as well, depending on just, how you're hardwired. Okay. Also, Cancer is a very warm sign, caring and empathetic, and also nurturing. Okay. Cancer and people with very prominent Cancer energy, for this reason, are also known to be excellent cooks, with food playing a very large role in these people's lives, because food is one of the main sources of comfort for people. And of course, it can be used and abused, but a lot of people with very prominent Cancer energy can make excellent chefs, excellent caretakers in general, nurses, in positions where they are actually caring for others. These are your daycare workers, even people who work in the hospitality industry, your maids, people who clean. Although, Cancer in and of itself can be a very messy sign. Okay. Now, tying it back to this theme for comfort, okay, because Cancer is one of those signs that does seek out comfort, This is one of the reasons that family does play such a very strong role in these people's lives. This is the reason why motherhood and their mothers and even their homes and domestic arrangements play such a strong role in these people's lives. Because ideally, where are people most comfortable, right? In the home. And usually for a lot of cancers, their homes are super personalized. And these are people who, in fact, if they could stay home all day, they would. If they could work from home, they would. And it's almost like they seek to carry a piece of this home with them everywhere that they go. These are people where, their comfort level could be their number one priority. So taking it back to that Cancer in Venus, right? A manifestation of this could even be a person who their style of dress could definitely, the number one priority be to cater to that level of comfort. These are people who could care more about their level of comfort over style. But of course, this could be afflicted depending on what other energies are at play within the birth chart, okay? Cancer is also a very instinctive and protective sign, and sometimes very defensive, especially when it comes to the people that they love. So very similar to its crab, right? The symbol of Cancer, crab. These people are ready to go on the defense and strike. They have soft, fleshy bodies that are often protected by a hard exterior. And of course, this symbolism, this level of symbolism does manifest on a personality level, as these are people who tend to try to be kind of, a lot more tougher than what they are. But on the inside, it's like, we see you, right? And it's definitely a defense mechanism because there are a lot of instances in which these people can be taken for granted or can be used and abused and taken advantage of, right? So these are people who, love very hard, but if they do feel slighted, and once again, if you are causing harm or posing as a threat to their comfort and the people that they love, they will definitely attack you with no holds barred, which counters a very common interpretation that I find a lot of amateur astrologers tend to make, which is associating Cancer with kind of this weak or timidness, right? Although Cancer can be passive aggressive in nature, more often than not, once again, when triggered, okay, when posed or when viewing threats from outside of what it's already created an attachment to, these people can be vicious and relentless. Hence why when you even view a person with their Mars in Cancer, these are people who actually can be very violent people. And I would argue it's a very particular type of violence because it lacks a certain level of rhyme or reason, right? Because Cancer's watery nature definitely drowns out the assertiveness and the clarity that's associated with such a action-oriented sign like Mars. And it can make a person very whimsical, very delirious in terms of of course, their motives, but predominantly even their emotions and their anger, and it definitely manifests in a lack of control. So these are people who can be prone to incredibly violent outlashes, you know what I'm saying? And the same thing with people who have other prominent Cancer energy, if it's afflicted. So let's not get Cancer confused, because another misconception is that, Cancers are the crybaby of the zodiac. And I guess they are to an extent, but, naturally correlating that crybaby nature or sensitivity with weakness or an inability to pose as a threat is very short-sighted. And it's a huge error in thought process, because when you apply it to so many other real life principles, the person who is the biggest threat to you is actually the scariest person in the room. Even when we're thinking about like our guns and things like that, right? People who have access to knives and artillery and weaponry, right? These are the people who are the most frightened, are the people who actually probably kill you the quickest, because it's a me or you kind of mindset, right? It's definitely like a defensive reaction, the old flight or fight response, which can make cancers very unpredictable. A lot of this is also a byproduct of cancers' overly developed attachment to their emotions, which is why they aren't known for being the most logical or rational or even subjective people in the world. Cancers are feelers. They're not thinkers. So these are people who, where their conscious mind is extremely influenced by their feelings and whatever is going on within them at that time, which they are known to ruminate in their feelings, very similar to Scorpios as well. And then this sense of living in their emotions can cause them to, respond to people in a variety of different ways. These are also people depending on, where this Cancer energy is placed, like particularly my Cancer Mercuries or people who have Cancer in the third house. This can lead to people being very wishy-washy as well, constantly changing their minds, because if your mind is always going to be predicated upon your feelings and emotions, those things are ever changing. Those things are ever fluctuating, especially for a Cancer or, with that Cancer energy. So these are people where it can take a very long time to make up their mind. These are people who, oftentimes don't even know if they're going or coming. This could also even make a person very self-absorbed, this state of constantly ruminating and being fixated upon one's internal state of being or emotions, which also aids to this stereotype in the old Cancer archetype of them being big babies, right? Now, another manifestation of this Cancer energy is that, Cancer is very creative and imaginative, sometimes a little bit too much, because if afflicted, these are people that can get too carried away with their imagination, okay, for better or for worse. So for better, this would be a person who, is an excellent artist, an excellent musician. Cancers are also known for their love of music. I don't think they get the credit that they deserve for that. But these are also very immaculate storytellers as well. So these are people who can be extremely creative. However, on a negative spectrum, these are people who can be prone to irrational fear. So I'm talking, for example, maybe you have a mother who allows her son to go to a football game and he doesn't call her as soon as the game is over. Now she's jumping to conclusions. Now, in her mind, she's visualizing him being shot in the face by a police officer and having his body strung up from a tree. And then she's going to turn on the news and see his, mangled corpse swinging from the tree on the news or on YouTube or something. And now she's in her feelings. Now she's crying. Now she's hyperventilating. She doesn't really know how to put this into words. And then people around her are looking at her crazy. She's blowing her son up. She's calling him 10 times in a row. And he's looking at her like, Mom, you got to relax. What the fuck is going on? Okay. That is like that quintessential Cancer energy where the mind can kind of, your emotions and just, it can take over you. Okay, and you can get just completely carried away in the most morbid, obscene, and irrational. I would like to, place an emphasis on the irrational fears and thoughts and images. They don't have to have a particular rhyme or reason, and they don't have to be grounded in any sort of reality at all, which does tie back into this tendency to, or for a lot of astrologers to group Cancer in with this like hysterical type of response, right? From a shadow perspective, for a lot of dark-sided Cancers to be associated with having issues. Like when you're thinking about, if we're talking about mental illness, I would describe Pisces as maybe like your schizophrenic, but Cancer would be your person with like borderline personality disorder. These are people who can also be prone towards incessant worrying. Now, also, Cancer is a sign that is very strongly associated with history, also lineage. Once again, like I was saying before, culture, race, all of that good stuff. And, I mean, this can be positive, but of course, if afflicted, this is one of the reasons why that Cancer energy is notoriously associated with racism, prejudice, even sexism and colorism. These people can have a very difficult time associating and empathizing with people who are not, who are kind of outside of that herd, right? These people are very big tribalists with a natural predisposition to lean towards people, places, and things that look like them, that reflect their experiences and what they feel that they already are a part of. Now, from a physical standpoint, Cancer does govern the chest, the breast, the stomach, the womb. And as a result, many of Cancer's emotional and physical biorhythms can be governed by the lunar transit cycles. Of course, with Cancer being governed by the moon. So for women, this could often manifest in, your menstruation side effects being felt more strongly. This stems from the ancient idea that the moon's pull allows women to ovulate around the full moon and then have their periods around the new moon. This obviously could also play at a person's emotional state of well-being. So these are people who can be prone towards that more quote unquote hysterical based nature, depending on what the moon is doing at the time. These are people who can often feel the effects of a full moon, which, I mean, there is scientific data that does correlate, the full moon's presence with, different responses in humans, right? In human reaction. But these are people who can definitely be affected by like a full moon or something like that, or like a lunar eclipse, way more than your average individual. And that could go for male or female. And the men can also be prone towards that shiftiness and unpredictability in their moods and in their emotions based on, of course, what's going on with the moon at the time. So that is Cancer exposed in a nutshell. You guys always feel free to drop down in the comment section. Let me know if I missed something. If you have your own thoughts you would like to contribute, feel free. Feel free to share. I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, make sure you thumbs up if you liked it. Share with a friend. And y'all make sure y'all take care of yourself out here. Make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And as always, until the next video, I holla.